sent me the messages.
Good.
And I have them.
Good.
Whole conversation.
Good. So you can see that it's not that bad.
My partner is a bit on the wild side. No way I can stay with that girl, lol.
Whoa, so not only was Josh flirting with Sophie, but he was laughing about Natalie behind her back. Surely, this is a point where Natalie says no more. I don't deserve this. Or, knowing Natalie, perhaps this is the point where she loses her mind completely.
Done! I mean, too much! Look at me! It's not about you right now!
Oh gosh, Natalie's picking fights again, while Josh sits there just looking humiliated. But before we get to that, let's rewind to the start. So the last we saw them, Natalie finally admitted that it wasn't Sophie that flirted with Josh, it was Josh that flirted with Sophie. But with Josh now set to return to the resort, will she confront him and demand an explanation, demand answers? Or will she do what she always does? Will she forgive him and hope that they'll live happily ever after?
I want to accomplish what we came here for, but I still expect her to be a little upset about the Sophie thing.
So what did you come to the last resort for, Josh? More screen time, more publicity, or do you actually want to work on your relationship with Natalie? Like, I'm sorry, but he really doesn't seem all that into Natalie. Let's just be honest here. It's always been the same with him. We're asking the same questions now about his intentions as we were like a year ago. Now, of course, the problem is, the reason why he can get away with this behaviour is because Natalie enables it. I mean, just take what happens when he actually sees Natalie again after returning. She attempts to confront him, right? But it loses all effect because she can't stop smiling the entire time. Just look at her grinning like a giddy schoolgirl.
I have a kind of proof
Oh, you do?
that you've been hitting another boat.
Oh, okay.
While my boat was like, I'm was alone on the boat waiting for you.
Now, don't ask why she's using boat analogies. I've got absolutely no idea either, okay? But that aside, just take note of her smile. Like, even though she's saying some pretty shocking stuff, she's laughing. I just don't get it. It's such a strange reaction. Here she is with proof that he's been flirting with Sophie, and yet she's there smiling and flicking her hair because seemingly she can't resist him. It's weird. It's just not normal. Now, for his part, of course, as we expected, Josh tries to downplay and minimise his flirting with Sophie. But it's at that point, finally, that Natalie is almost forced to take a firmer stance.
She sent me the messages.
Good.
And I have them.
Good.
Whole conversation.
Good. So you can see that it's not that bad.
My partner is a bit on the wild side. No way I can stay with that girl, lol.
My partner is a bit on the wild side. There's no way that I can stay with that girl. Laugh out loud. There you go. If you needed proof, that, in what he thought was a private interaction away from the cameras, is how this guy really feels. There's no way that he can stay with her, straight from the horse's mouth. Now, these aren't even the flirty messages, but caught red-handed, Josh is finally forced to apologise. And it's at that point that Natalie reads out loud how Josh actively invited Sophie to join him on a trip to Las Vegas. But just watch how Josh expertly spins the whole situation. Watch how he ends up expertly gaslighting Natalie.
We are planning.
We are planning. Wow. That doesn't say, come to Vegas with me, baby. There was like a group of 7 of us.
Why you don't write group of 7 of us? And why I wasn't invited
we.
there?
Yeah, those are all great questions, Natalie. Why did he choose to invite Sophie and not you? And why did he keep secret the fact that there were 7 others joining on that trip? I'll tell you why. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. It's because he's flirting with her. He's hinting that he wants her there so that he can spend time alone with her. I mean, why else would he be inviting an attractive younger lady, another castmate? It's not so that they sit there playing board games, is it? Come on. But rather than hold his hands up and admit what he did, Josh just doesn't want to answer any more questions.
I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to work on
would
the
you
future.
possibly give me guarantees that you will not do this to me again?
Listen, I'm here to work on the future, and you want to keep
With
talking
who?
about the
With
past.
who?
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, Josh is such a gaslighter. He's making it seem like it's unreasonable for Natalie to be questioning him when he's wrong. He's done wrong. He's twisting the situation, right? He's trying to make it seem like he's the rational one who cares about their future, when in fact, all he's doing is trying to avoid it. He says he's ready to move on. But what about Natalie? What about how you've hurt her feelings, Josh? What about whether or not she's ready?
You know,
Let's show.
you use your
Every-
energy not to making friends, but fixing a relationship with me.
Listen.
Use your energy.
Let's show everybody else that we can do this, okay?
I hate that this is working, but it's working. Josh's glimmer of affection totally derails Natalie's train of thought. And despite having evidence that her own boyfriend made fun of her as if she was a joke, despite evidence that he wanted to be alone with Sophie, Natalie just forgives him. All she gets is a half-assed promise that he'll do better in the future. But as they head to group therapy, the rest of the cast aren't quite so forgiving.
I was with Natalie when Sophie showed her the text message. She was very hurt.
Yeah,
Very hurt.
I know.
Yeah,
It was
I don't like to
shocking.
see
It was really
Natalie
shocking.
hurt.
I know. And I apologize to her.
Josh defends himself in the car ride to Stacey and Ari, telling them that the messages he sent were completely harmless. He even goes as far as to say he did nothing wrong. He never touched, quote unquote, Sophie, as if that somehow is the benchmark for being a good boyfriend. It's alright, guys, come on, I never touched her, so I can get away with flirting with Sophie and ridiculing Natalie. But no, Josh, you can't. And one thing's for sure, he's definitely not winning anyone over with that kind of attitude.
I'm really weary for Natalie because this guy is clearly stringing Natalie along, and I'm not sure why Natalie's falling for it.
When Ari asks if Natalie actually trusts Josh, she gives off the impression that she does. Why? Well, because she has to. If she doesn't believe what he says, then where does that leave her? It leaves her alone again, and I think that is why she keeps on running back to him. It's because she's so scared of the alternative. She's so scared of being alone again, 1 year older or multiple years older after all the time that they've wasted together, and her biological clock ticking. Less and less chance of having that kid that she so desperately craves. That's got to be why she's clinging on, surely. It's the only thing that makes sense. But as the rest of the cast arrive, Jasmine clocks Josh, and his return makes her worried about Natalie.
With Natalie, you never know what to expect. Hopefully, she's not gonna come with more shit, but she is beyond crazy. And for me to say it, that's a lot.
Now, today's group therapy session is all about leadership. Who takes the lead in each couple's relationship? Is it one person or is it a shared responsibility? And to test that, they're going to be doing a physical challenge. It's a challenge designed to put leadership and certain control issues to the test. So when the counsellor asks who's the leader in Natalie and Josh's relationship, I think their answer tells us a lot.
I think I'm a natural leader.
Natalie, how do you respond to that?
I don't mind you being a leader, but I also feel like every leader needs an advisor.
Oh, I like that.
There they are trying to act like they're the perfect couple, as if they complement each other perfectly. But the fact is, they're not fooling anyone. Like, Natalie's delusion that she's somehow an advisor in Josh's life is exactly that. It's delusion, because from what we've seen, he's not taking any heed of any of her advice. He's been the one calling all of the shots since the very first day, and she's been running after him like a little puppy dog. Now, going back to the task at hand, right, each couple needs to pick two roles. One of them is going to be the rower, and the other is going to be the thrower.
A rower
you're
is going
gonna
to take
paddle.
the oar and row. The thrower is going to have to hold on to a ball and eventually shoot it in a basket, which we'll explain.
Now, initially, Josh picks thrower and Natalie picks rower. But after they learn how much rowing is actually involved, they decide to switch. So what does the challenge actually involve? Well, the couples need to row to point A, get their ball, then row to point B, shoot the ball into a basket, and then row back to the start line. And this is the point at which Josh and Natalie's competitive side comes out. In fact, they're willing to do whatever it takes to win, even if that means playing dirty.
Before the even game started, they cheated. They switched their roles once they heard the actual game rules. Also, this is like a therapy process. I feel like for them to cheat during this, it shows their character, honestly.
Look, Natalie and Josh seem to have missed the entire point of the whole exercise. They don't seem to be taking this seriously as a therapy exercise. Like, they just breeze past the actual therapy, right? They breeze past the challenge of picking the roles that they picked. There's no discussion or communication about that of any kind, but instead they hyper-obsess on the competition side of things. They become fixated with the sports element of the game, so much so in fact, that Natalie actually begins to kind of scare me.
Josh, come on. I mean,
Unsurprisingly, Josh and Natalie win, right? But while they might be over the moon, by the time the rest of the cast complete the challenge, it becomes obvious, so obvious, that they cheated for first place. Like, sure, okay, this might be the first time we've actually seen Natalie and Josh work as a team, but they cheated, right? So no one's gonna recognise any progress that they've made. No one's gonna recognise or applaud them for their teamwork. In fact, all the rest of the cast want is to see blood.
Who cares?
I do feel attacked right now because instead of saying congratulations, people attack me.
Sorry, Natalie, no one's going to congratulate you for cheating. Now, it is true to say that the cast do seem to be getting a savage amount of joy in disqualifying them. And that is no doubt down to the pent-up frustration that they harbour towards them both. The truth is, Natalie and Josh have ignored all of their problems, they've pretended to be this happy couple, and rightly, no one wants them to be rewarded for that, despite what Natalie's defence might be.
But when we left the ground, you all knew we already switched, but you were fine. So when we won, you're not fine. You're cheating, and it's not fair, and we won.
Whether they won or lost should be beside the point. Like, the cast are there for therapy. Every single one of them should be working on themselves. And for the rest of the day, that is precisely what they try to do. They all pull up chairs, and this is when the group therapy begins. But, and it's a very big but, despite being in such a broken, dysfunctional, terrible relationship themselves, Natalie and Josh have a heck of a lot to say about Sophie.
She does have this cute little voice, so it kind of gives her this innocence, and so she tries to get away with that.
Agree, 1,000,000%.
But she has ulterior motives.
Josh, mate, is this your vindictive side coming out? Are you trying to get your own back for being caught flirting with her? This is him criticising Sophie in the hope that it downplays his own flirting. He wants to try and make her look as bad as possible so that somehow he might look a little bit better. Either that, or it's revenge for Sophie sharing all of their private messages. Maybe a little of column A and a little of column B. Now, whatever the case, surprisingly, his approach seems to be working. I mean, just look at Natalie. Look at how ecstatic she is to hear Josh criticise Sophie. She seems to get some kind of encouragement. It almost seems to spur her on. Because it's at that point, as Sophie begins trying to talk, right, it's at that point that Natalie's own behaviour starts to get so much worse.
So can you stop laughing while I'm talking,
sorry,
please? It's extremely rude. Like, everyone's trying to be vulnerable here. Can you have some respect, please?
Natalie can't seem to hold in her manic laughter as Sophie talks. It's disgusting behaviour. Her laugh sounds fake. It's as if she's deliberately trying to disrupt the session, disrespect Sophie. She's trying to make it all about herself, and even Josh ignores her. Look at him. He's embarrassed by her. He has his head in his hands. It really is pathetic, disgusting behaviour. For someone who cried at their therapy session, cried about being bullied and wanting to make amends with all of the girls, Natalie really should do better. But unfortunately, she just doesn't seem to care.
Done! I mean, too much! Look at me! Look at me! It's not about you right now!
Yes, Julia, yes. Julia is yelling what everyone else is thinking. Look at the counsellors. Even they nod their head at Julia's outburst. Natalie is too much, and it's wrong, it's sad that she's acting this way after what appeared to be a breakthrough during her own last personal therapy session. This is just proof that Natalie will never change. She's not going to change the way she acts around female castmates, other women, and she's definitely not going to change the way that she acts around Josh, the way she pathetically clings to him, even though he clearly doesn't care about her.